Hey guys, this is Pastor John, the Gospel Guy, and I want to invite you really to take part with us in a very, very special journey. I have people all the time who will ask me to help them understand things like politics, help them understand things like racial issues, look at economics, look at end times questions, all of those questions which we spend a lot of our time thinking about and talking about. And that while those are all important things and important topics to address, I think a lot of times those important topics can distract us from the most important topic, and that is really who Jesus is, and really experiencing his presence in our lives and really learning more about him. So I want to invite you here in the weeks to come to something that is very, very special. I want to invite you to journey with me through the Gospel of Luke. And we're going to be looking really every day around noon. We're going to be really sharing lunch together and looking at the Gospel of St. Luke, really looking as he brings together different strands of evidence to weave together the story of Jesus. And what I want to really challenge you to do is to step into that story, to really experience Jesus' presence, to really imagine that you indeed are one of these first disciples who are following Jesus. And by stepping into the story, you will begin to find some potential answers and solutions to many of your questions. But more than that, you're going to see him start to transform your life as you more and more believe the truth that he loves you, as you more and more begin to shift your heart to value the things that he values. You're going to see your life change. You're going to see your world around you changed. And so we're going to be looking here at Luke, and really during lunch times, just kind of verse by verse by verse. As we get started in this, I want us to look first today at Luke chapter 1, verses 1 through 2. The text says, "Many have undertaken to compile a narrative about the events that have been fulfilled among us, just as the original eyewitnesses and servants of the word handed them down to us." So remember that Luke was one of the guys who traveled with the Apostle Paul. Luke, based on his vocabulary and such, seems to have been a physician. And Luke really ended up, in many ways, being the scribe, the recorder for Paul's missionary team. As such, he was having, people who were curious about the story of Jesus, about finding an actual, narrative that was constructed in such a way that, they could pull together the different events and the different rumors and the different stories that were being told, and could pull it together into what is really effectively an ancient history. And so that's what Luke did. Luke was not one of the first eyewitnesses himself, although he does obviously towards the end of his 2-volume work begin to talk about things he did see as he traveled with the Apostle Paul. But what he does instead is he goes out, much as a journalist would, and he interviews primary sources. And through these eyewitnesses and sources, Luke actually pulls together and constructs a narrative that really is kind of flows somewhat chronologically, though actually is somewhat thematic also in how he structures it. But it was his goal to record the story of Jesus, to record Jesus's ministry in such a way that people would have that as a reference. Verses 3 through 4, it says this: "It also seemed good to me, since I've carefully investigated everything from the very first, to write to you in an orderly sequence, most honorable Theophilus, so that you may know the certainty of the things about which you've been instructed. Now, notice this. Luke has a primary person, in mind for his audience. Now, we don't know much of Theophilus. His name means one who loves God. We don't know if he was in some way involved in the Roman government or some other kind of a Gentile leader. We don't know if this is kind of more of a general statement to anyone who's seeking, to anyone who's curious. We don't know exactly who this guy was. But notice that here Luke really gives us in these verses his point, his purpose. His purpose is somebody who loves God, somebody who's curious, somebody who's seeking, may know with certainty, the things about which you have been instructed. May know with certainty. That word for certainty can mean, security against stumbling or falling. Something that's steadfast, something that's safeguarded, something that has assurance. As I think about that a little bit, I think that's something, this idea in the Greek word there is asphalion. And asphalion, again, security, something that's steadfast, something that's trustworthy, something that can be believed in. As I think about that, I think of how important it is for those of us today who know Jesus to put together that kind of orderly account, to be able to share that kind of orderly account with those who are seeking. So those who are seeking know that there's a steadfastness here, a surety, something that can be trusted, something that they can build their life on, an actual meta-narrative. In a postmodern world, people have kind of deconstructed all meta-narratives, and we see different political points of view and others trying to construct fresh meta-narratives, and we see all of the cynicism and skepticism that goes with the world without a meta-narrative. But here's the thing, there is a central narrative. There is a meta-narrative. There is something that is sure and that is certain that we can build our lives upon. And that's the story of Jesus. So I want us to join in with Luke, and I want us to step into this story and to really follow along with Jesus' disciples as they follow Jesus, as they learn of his words, of his deeds, as they catch a glimpse of who he is. I look forward to this journey with you, and I will be praying for each of you as we spend this time together looking at Jesus, looking at his story, and following along with him. Keep following Jesus.